For some context, I have been friends with this guy for a little over 3 years. When I first met him, I thought he was hilarious, kind, intelligent, and overall a really interesting person. Everyone thought that of him, and they still do. He's loved by his peers and is a very well-known member of our community. This is important later. We didn't become best friends till a few months into our friendship. One day, we were joking around, and we had a genuine connection with each other. I've never had such a good time with someone before. It was one of those moments when you're with someone and you silently laugh and can't breathe. It was fun. When I first met him, his ex-girlfriend warned me of him. I was pretty close to her, but I still couldn't believe anything she said about him. I assumed she was a vengeful ex. She claimed that he went far past her sexual boundaries, was unusually cruel to her at times, and one time attempted to drown her. She said they went swimming, and he put all of his weight on top of her and kept holding her underwater. Once she'd come up, he would do it again and again. They broke up after that. I ignored this, and as I said earlier, chalked it up to her having an extreme dislike for him. One day he brags to me about he got away with relentlessly bullying this kid in high school. He tried to talk him into suicide, but the kid would only go as far as to cut himself, so he gave up after getting bored. He thought this was hilarious, and he was laughing while telling me about it. I was very disturbed by this, and I never seen him act so cruel before. Another time, we went hiking together. This was his idea. The trail we were at was very popular, so there were a lot of people there. This one woman stood out to him, I guess, and he kept commenting on how gorgeous she was. She was with a man who I guess was her husband or boyfriend, and I just thought the whole thing was strange. Afterwards, we went out to eat inside of this plaza, and he guided the conversation to the topic of sex. We each slowly opened up about what we liked, and it was pretty normal until he brought up his true interests. He said he fantasized about kidnapping, raping, and murdering a girl. He told me in detail how he basically wanted to torture some lady and commit necrophilia along with some other fucked up stuff. Once we got done eating, he kept joking about going back to that girl and doing all that to her. He brought it up numerous times throughout the day, and it was apparent he wasn't joking. It was more of a suggestion at this point. I distanced myself from him after that, and we kind of drifted apart anyways as we got separate jobs and didn't see each other much. I went to a party one night, and guess who was there? The creepo. At the beginning, I mentioned how everyone loves him. He is an active member of the community and goes to church, plus his new occupation adds to his facade. He started talking to me, and he seemed normal, as per usual. I thought he changed because of how convincing he was. I'm sure you think you could tell, but I'm telling you this guy could easily fool you. He told me how he joined the local PD. Yep, he's a cop now. And I was shocked by this. He always mentioned wanting to join law enforcement and would never say he had bad intentions. Maybe he was genuine about helping people, or maybe it was just a cover. Who knows? But either way, he shouldn't have that authority. We started talking again, and we hung out a few times. He seemed completely normal and kind, so I assumed everything was all right until he mentions his cousin's death and talks about him so coldly and doesn't seem to feel sad about it at all. He also spoke of his current girlfriend in a detached manner. During our friendship, he told me how he abused his dog and killed others when he was younger, and recently he bragged about kidnapping a sex worker and scaring her. Anytime I asked him what he meant by scaring, he'd become hostile and refused to go into further detail. He's always loved going into detail, so I'm curious about why he isn't about this all of a sudden. On New Year's, we went to a bar and he nearly killed a guy. He literally beat the guy till he was choking on his own blood and didn't stop until I said the poor guy could die. I tried to stop him physically, but he's a lot stronger than I am. He turned around with this blank expression on his face and casually went back into conversation. I've reported him to the police anonymously, but I haven't heard anything back from them. I'm convinced he's a psychopath or something along those lines. This incident happened back in 2014 when I was last committed to a psych ward for a suicide attempt. A little background. I am female and was 19 at the time. I was coming off of 3 years of bipolar medication while at a peak of substance abuse facilitated by my first year in college going crazy with new adult freedom. One night I had a big mental episode and was committed for the first time in the adult ward. Previously, I had only been admitted in the minors' ward during my adolescence for similar episodes. Within this unit, you had to share a room with the same sex, but weren't given any proper introductions. The facility as a whole wasn't managed effectively, nor did any of the nurses or doctors seem to care other than to prescribe and get you out. I was led to the room I was staying in, and the nurse just said to the other lady in the room, "This is your new roommate," and left. The woman appeared to be in her late 40s or early 50s, Hispanic, and just a little taller than me. She would not keep her gaze off of the floor in front of her and didn't say a word or move when I said hi. I noticed she had a tattoo of a cartoon version of the classic Red Devil, but as a baby. I figured I'd just leave her alone and stick to my area of the room. The first night went as they normally do in a psych ward with a nightly group, and my roommate declined to share anything, yet again only staring at the floor, barely moving an inch. While everyone was lining up to be given their medication before bed, the ward across began to start banging on the glass of the door and screaming. One guy was smiling while banging his bald head against the glass window part while the guys behind him were screaming and jumping around. It seemed as if they were almost going to break through, but orderlies came and took them away with their screams still lingering through the halls. Being in the psych wards before, I wasn't surprised by out-of-the-ordinary behavior like yelling or fights starting, but this was completely different to me. I was with disturbed adults now, people who had years of illness deteriorating their mind, not angry little kids anymore. I actually felt scared for the first time because of the high level of unpredictability with these people. I knew I wasn't all there in the head, but even these people had me anxious and made it difficult to try to get any rest that night. You know that feeling of being awake, but you haven't opened your eyes yet? The moment where you are barely waking up and everything is fuzzy? This is the state of conscious I was in later that night. I felt like I was waking up, but as if something was waking me up, yet still so tired I wasn't opening my eyes. The more I came to, I felt pressure on my forehead and I could sense sweat dripping on my face. I opened my eyes to find the roommate standing over my bed, staring me in the eye with one hand on my forehead and the other in a balled-up fist on her chest while she speaks in what I assume is tongues. I look into her eyes and they are blank and empty of any emotion. She keeps speaking faster and getting louder. I am paralyzed at this moment, not sure what to do or what she would even do if I were to yell or move. It was only us in the room, and the nurse's station is all the way at the end of the hall. She started wiping the sweat off my forehead while still speaking fast and erratic, and I wasn't sure what she was doing or planned on doing next. She then put both hands on my forehead, and at this point was screaming while shaking me, but not long before a nurse came in and took her off of me. The nurse seemed more irritated that she had to get up and do her job rather than concerning of how I was doing or feeling. She escorted the woman out and said to not worry and just go back to sleep. I don't know how, but I managed to fall back asleep. I assume she got transferred to the more severe ward because I did not see her again the next day, and luckily I was able to leave later that day. This incident has since been a reminder for me to never go back and to manage my mental well-being because while I have issues, I could be in a far worse state of mind. I still wake up some nights with lingering anxiety and have to calm myself down to go back to sleep. I never want to go back to a ward in my life to experience this again, or something far worse.